Well, hello, good morning, happy Saturday on this beautiful April 12th day. I just want to welcome you to Activate Your Power Now. To those of you who tune in monthly, you heard me say last month that I was going to show up newly this month and start practicing, make sure we start on time, right? At Activate Your Power Now, we really do make space and practice the no right, no wrong. There just is what is, and we're here to hold space with other people with that what is, right? Not getting too frazzled in life, knowing that it's not that serious. There are more serious stuff we could be spending our time, our thoughts, and our emotions on. So, with that being said, holding true to my word, I'm started the stream on time. However, we are still waiting for everyone to get here. So again, I didn't want to leave you guys hanging. I'm going to flip the camera. I'm going to go ahead and mute the stream. And just, you can see as we start coming in, we'll be jumping back on probably in the next 10 minutes and bringing our speakers up. So thank you for tuning in. For all of you catching the replay, thank you so much. We hope you enjoy today's Activate Your Power Now. And our topic is Activate Your Story. It's going to be powerful, so stick around. Go get a drink, go to the bathroom, go get your notebooks. Do whatever you need to do before we get started. You're going to want to take notes. Welcome back. Thank you so much for hanging tight with us. I'm Izzy, the Intentional Healer, or Isabel Luz Camacho Black, as you'll see on my social medias. And here today with you at Activate Your Power Now. We're actually starting our new series. And this 8-month series that we're doing starting today, and it goes till November, is activating your power. So we've shown up, right, the last 4.5 years with Activate Your Power Now and different series topics and subtopics and all of that good stuff, which has brought such great stories, great people to this community, and a lot of healing has been happening throughout the years. But this year we really wanted to make it about you. Right? If we've been activating our power now together for the last 4.5 years, we're ready now to share how activating our story has been helpful in our life, the challenges that maybe it's brought up, right? Because when you activate your story, that means you take a deep dive into yourself, into who you are and why. What have you experienced in life up to this point? And that's good, bad, and different. This is not just sad sob stories. This is empowerment stories. Stories of the true life we live individually, but how the powers that are within us that we need to use to get through those times, we're now collectively sharing them out loud, linking arms with each other, and putting it out there to all of you. Right? So we're on a journey of healing ourselves, knowing that by doing that, we are doing our part to heal the world. So I would love to bring our first speaker up. His name is Evan Ivory Long, and he is no stranger to Activate Your Power Now. You've seen his beautiful face and heard his beautiful story numerous times, as he's a repeat activator. He also is who we call on and rely on when we're hosting our free community events, right? Trying to build community and bridge families, right? He's always there, and he always makes himself available to pour into you and to pour into this organization. So we have a lot of awesome stuff in the works together that we can't wait to share with you guys in the future. But for now, enjoy how Evan Ivory Long has activated his story. Thank you.
Izzy, thank you so much. You always know how to, liven up the energy and introduce me. I love it so much. Thank you all, right? Thank you, everyone that's attending online. And good morning to you. Good morning.
Good morning.
It is a beautiful day. The weather is wonderful outside, so I think it's perfect environment right now to come outside, right? Physically and as well as personally, emotionally. There's a lot of energy that's springing up right now. And for me, I had to do a lot of reflection. So before I kind of hop into everything, I just want to take a moment for us to just take a deep breath. Take a deep breath in, center yourself, ground yourself in this moment, and breathe in deeply into your stomach through your nose. And exhale through your mouth or nose. Let your shoulders drop. Lift your chin. Elevate your energy through your spine. And just take a moment to be here right now, along with all the rest of the activators in the room, as we open our hearts, open our minds, to receive and to give. And with another deep breath in, exhale, harmonizing our hearts and energy. And you can open your eyes when you're ready. And thank you for taking that moment with me. All right, we can get up here and we can kind of get all into this energy, and it can unground us, right? Like a lot of things in life, it can unground us. It can challenge us. It can force us to make changes that maybe we don't want to make, or things that we need to make in order to make it to where God wants us to be, honestly. And that's been my story that I've been discovering for these past couple of years. So just kind of hopping back a little bit, For those of you that don't know my story, particularly over the past few years, I had an event that happened to me during a transformative time. I got in a car accident. Thankfully, everybody that was involved in it is okay. Um, and but for me, that was a dark time. I had just graduated from school as a massage therapist from Wellspring School of Allied Health. I was getting ready to start my business on the go, and I just received a new car from my father, which I talked a little bit about my story there. My relationship with my father, it's kind of been here and there. We've definitely grown a lot in the way that we've connected, and I've understood him more, especially looking at him as a person instead of my father and someone that's supposed to know everything. He's a human being on this world. But that's not how I felt when the accident happened. It actually dislodged a lot of anger that I had storing in my body and things that I had suppressed, thought I had got over. But really, all I did was cover it up with work. I covered it up with putting on a smile, covered it up with I covered it up with a mask. And I didn't realize I was wearing a mask or that I was being fake or unauthentic. And so it was this moment that I had to be forced to reflect on this emotion, where it's actually coming from. Why am I truly angry? Why am I truly hurt? And that's where this next journey, or that's truly where my journey started to get to where I am now. So this is the beginning of, that was the end of 2022 when I had that car accident. And at the beginning of 2023, I was facing an eviction from the apartment that I was living in. This wasn't the first time that I've gone through this process, maybe not personally, with me losing the eviction when I was younger. We almost we did lose our place to live, my mother, my younger brother, and I. And so it was a karmic moment, I say, where it's like, God is telling you and told me to sit down and look at the actions that you're taking. You're doing all of this action to move forward. I need you to pull it back. I need you to retreat. And I kind of went into this cocoon. I actually moved back in with my sister, who so graciously allowed me to do so. She has been a benevolent person in my life and a lot of others as well. And I'm truly grateful for her and her family, my family, for loving on me and helping me in this process. But it took a lot. It took a lot for me to honestly feel worthy of that help. I felt the lowest that I had felt about myself in a very long time. I felt less of a man. I felt less of a person. And the thoughts that were going through my head frequently through that year of 2023 wanted to take me out. Wanted to take me out.
Take your time.
And there's all of those thoughts that come up, especially in those times when you feel the most vulnerable, late at night, you can't sleep. But there's still one little spark that I heard the loudest that was saying, don't give up. Don't give up. This is not it for you. You've been through worse. You've been through challenging times. You've done hard things. Come on, you can do this. And it's one voice among the many that are saying, you're not good enough. You did this. You should have did this. Or those voices like, you should have listened to me and you should have kept this job and you wouldn't have had to deal with this situation. You would have had your own house. But I choose to listen to that tiny voice and that I recognize as God speaking to me. Because God was training me and putting me through certain things in order to overcome them, to gain that strength. Because I was always asking for strength. I was always asking for wisdom. But the way that God gives you that strength and wisdom is by putting you in that situation for you to grow it.
Yes.
It's a seed that he's planting in you and putting you in that environment so that it can foster and grow and it can bloom. Because that blooming, that growth, it's not just for you.
Yes.
It's for everyone else around you. And so as I'm going through this journey in 2023, I'm showing up in the places that I felt unwelcome. It wasn't the energy in the place, it was what I was saying about myself, but still, it was that voice, that tiny spark saying, show up anyway,
Yes.
right? You don't have the clothes that you want to wear, you don't have the things that are fitting you, you're not going looking the shiniest, show up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Show up and be the different one in the room. Show up and be the unique one in the room. Show up and be your unique self. Because I need you there for these people.
Yes. Yes.
And it wasn't until later on in that year when, at this point, I was teaching. I was teaching and I was helping to foster new professionals at Wellspring School of Allied Health. And I'm in that position like, what am I doing here? You know, I just graduated. You know, like, what could I give? I'd have no experience in the world, or so I thought. But again, God was telling me, I need you here for a specific reason. Show up and just be obedient. And so I was obedient. Through the anxiety, through the anxious energy, through the imposter syndrome, I was obedient. And as I kept showing up, I kept learning more, I kept growing more, and I was starting to take off of those dark moments. Those thoughts started limiting themselves because that spark that I had started growing into an even bigger flame.
Yes. Yes.
So in the process of developing, I started getting more in alignment with myself and ultimately with God. I started actually taking moments to self-reflect and think about those thoughts. Where are these coming from? What can I do about this? Is this even true? At the time, I wasn't thinking like that before. Now I'm looking at it as, this is something for me to overcome.
Yes.
I'm in the process of growing, not for myself, but for others, for my family, for people that I actually want to help in those times when I felt powerless and felt nothing that I could do for them in that moment. I can help them. The best way I can help them is by growing myself and being an example for them and then giving back.
Right.
And so this is why I'm even here today. I didn't have a talk that I wanted to necessarily share with you. I just wanted to share my heart, share the things that I had been going through, that I felt, that I'm reflecting on. Because we have to reflect, we have to look back on those moments when our darkest times, those valley of times, in order to look forward, make it ahead, and make it to the top of that mountain.
Yes.
So I invite you today, as you listen to the rest of the speakers, to reflect on your own life and look at those moments where maybe it might have been the darkest time, or maybe you're going through that right now. Take a moment to sit and listen and find something that you can hold on that can be your spark in order to ignite that flame within you, to grow and become the activator that you already are and that you are meant to be. That's my time. Thank you so much. And I love you all. Thank you, Izzy. Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you, Evan. I mean, just first of all, thank you to help set the tone in the room, right? With that nice deep breath in, those exhales out. You know, that is the daily practice. For some reason, we tend to believe or think that it has to be this big grandioso thing, right? Change, activation. But it comes in subtle, small steps. It's not going to happen all at once. And thank you for sharing that very vulnerable story in your heart, as you always do every time you show up. Because everything you were speaking, I mean, these are all things that have been coming up in my heart. I've been hearing people share with me these past couple weeks, and it's stuff, challenges coming up with them, and them not knowing what voice is the voice that they should be listening to. Right? But like you said, there's that one voice that always comes through when your back's against the wall or when you just feel so defeated in life. There's that one voice, and it is like you said, that beacon of light. You know, it catches our attention. And if we could just practice and slow down enough, right, to take those breaths and pay attention to that spark of light, and then it gets bigger. It grows louder. And all of a sudden, there's a path presented in front of you to take that next best step, regardless. So I honor you and I thank you for being on this journey of intention, living on purpose the life that you know you were created to live, but understanding that it's a process. It's a process for us all. So our next speaker, she actually, I mean, everything we just said, she's a great testament also to all of those things. She's no stranger to activate your power now. She's shared her heart many times. Last month, she was so gracious and shared a beautiful song she wrote with us and sang it here for us. And I fell in love with that song. It was such a beautiful song. I don't know if she's singing today. Maybe she is, maybe she's not. You got to stay tuned in for that, right? But I want to welcome Amy Lee.
Hi, y'all.
Hey.
How are you?
Good.
Wonderful.
This morning, I am feeling kind of like bottled up chaos, but I'm going to be talking about pirates, so that's just fine. So I'm realizing I don't have a place for my notes, so we're going to roll with it.
Yes.
Okay.
Good girl.
Speak from the heart.
Yes.
And it was all well and good until the pirate invasion began. Doesn't that sound like a great line for the start of a book?
Yes.
It's going to be the opening line of my autobiography. Why? Because my parents, bless their hearts, 6 weeks before my twin and I were due, decided it would be fine to take a little trip from Macon down to Sarasota and see their family one more time before they have 2 little infants to take care of. And it was all well and good until the pirate invasion began. You see, Sarasota has a festival that includes a pirate invasion every year. And they have news media and radio, much like H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds coverage. And no one had thought to tell my pregnant mother that this was going to happen. So she woke up early on a Friday to the announcement that the pirates had invaded, and she hid under a bed to protect us and went into labor.
Oh, she is.
So, we were born in Sarasota. We learned to walk and talk in Georgia. At 2.5, we were adopted by a family in Virginia, and we got to grow up in the shadow of the Appalachian Mountains. I have been blessed with variety and chaos and creativity my whole life. And that's why I have the fun stories, like the pirate invasion. Because if your life starts out like that, you can't help but have this innate desire to just grab and hold on for all it's worth and see what adventure comes next.
Yes.
I won't say that it's been smooth sailing. I mean, really is for pirates, right? I even wear my swashbuckling boots. I had to explain that on the way out. I live with my bestie and his mom, And she was like, I love the outfit, but why the boots? I said, I'm a pirate. She goes, oh, that makes perfect sense. I'm like, yeah, I nailed it. So Virginia was a very small community. I grew up in a teeny tiny town, so small it measures 1 square mile radius and is called Rural Retreat. It lives up to its name. Let's just say that they're not really fond of pirates there or pirate-spirited people. And I have had the amazing experience of being too unique for my whole county since I was very small. My twin, Larry, got really good at following the rules and bending others' expectations to his will. And I just stayed defiant. I was determined that being different and not fitting in was not going to be the course of my life. And as much as I wanted to join the cheerleading team, it didn't happen. Let me tell you, I can't do a herky anymore, and I never made the team, but I still cheer people on. That's part of what I do, and I love that. So I took these experiences from a small town that to this day is not accepting of all that is me, and I went further in life. I changed my perspective. I took that pirate energy and turned it into possibilities. When I went to college the first time, I lasted 2 years. Having a whole lot of freedom means there's a whole lot of things you can get into, and some of them you regret and some of them you don't. And I have some of both. But I made it 2 years. And when I left college, I very quickly found out that I was going to have my own little pirate. And at 21, I had my first child. She has 4 holes in her heart. She had open heart surgery at 14 months. And if parenting doesn't make you grow up in a hurry, parenting a child with a serious illness will.
Right.
And so I did. I still didn't make the best decisions, though, because I was still seeking my adventures. So I found this guy. Psychologically speaking, you can say he fulfilled my father figure needs. He was twice my age, which I didn't know at the time, but he treated me like a princess, and he accepted my daughter, and it was all well and good until we had a girl, and he wanted a boy, and things went downhill, and I finally got the courage to leave. Then I got married to another guy who was absolutely off the hook insane. I did not know that he was dealing with a drug addiction. I did not know that he was genuinely psychotic until he threw a chair at me with my kids on each leg. And I turned Mama Bear so fast. It was unbelievable. And I realized in that moment that whatever I stood and withstood and accepted in the past, as far as how people treated me, was no longer going to be the case.
Right. Good.
I had more people to defend than just me, and I was going to do it. So I started a new adventure. I got to go down to Florida, meet my birth parents at, I guess I was 27. I got to meet my birth parents. I got to know my father before he passed. By that time, my twin had also left us. And I was floundering a little bit. I ended up going back home to Virginia, only to realize I was still a really round peg in a very square hole, and there was no way I was going to fit. And I did what, at this time I have 3 kids. I know, I just can't. I found a Prince Charming who told me he'd make everything all right. And I gave him my power, and I believed him. And we were married for 19 and a half years. And I allowed him to strip every bit of my identity from me. I traded security for my self-worth. I ended up in a wheelchair with 4 kids. I ended up very limited. I became so sensitive to everything, both physically and mentally and emotionally, that I was a wreck all the time. And then I got a tattoo. I got a tattoo of a lotus flower from a visiting artist at a tattoo shop. And he said, "Do you know what this means?" And I said, "No, but I will." And that has become my mantra for life. No, but I will. I will keep learning. I will keep shifting. I will find the positives and the possibilities. And that tattoo put me back on my path. Helped me find my inner beauty and my strength. And I finally left. And I got a new start at 50. My kids are all grown. I came to KC. I joined a band. I turned my poetry into songs, and I love it. I love sharing my voice and my hope and my passion for life, just like a pirate, with everyone I meet. And I'm not here to say I'm some Pollyanna that just wants to see bright skies and rainbows everywhere. I don't believe in the fluffy shit. Sorry. Crap. But I do believe that if you look, you can always find a silver lining.
Yes.
I do believe that everything that happens to us is either a win or a learning opportunity. And if we're going to grab hold of that opportunity, we can't count that as a loss.
No.
Everything I've been through has helped me relate to someone that I would not have otherwise.
Yes.
And I'm still embracing that pirate gypsy momentum, and I feel like I am finally living my life. I believe in silver linings, but the biggest lesson that I learned is I am my own silver lining.
Yes.
And as long as I am true to who I am and what I can do in this world, there is nothing that can stop me, even a pirate invasion.
Yes. Thank you, Amy, for that very, very, very powerful session. She always brings forth to the table that silver lining that when chaos is happening, we all seem to forget. I mean, that's just kind of a given, right? The silver lining is out the door. There's nothing good about this situation. But activating your story will reveal. Lost my train of thought. It will reveal those things. You know, when you activate your story, you can tell your story in a very powerful way, even if it's not a great story. Right? And Amy, she's been sharing her story on the platform now for a couple of years. And every time she just comes back more powerful and more powerful. Right? It's when we can tell our story without breaking down in it. Feel it, of course. Always feel it. But don't break down and get lost in it. That is activating your story. So thank you, Amy, for being such a great representation of that. Our next speaker is a new speaker to the platform, but not at all new to the community. So she's been coming and supporting us at our events for 3 or 4 years now. I feel like it was 2022 when I first met this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful person. She expressed at first how she loved coming to these events, how she felt so fulfilled afterwards, and she was never really even expecting to feel the feelings that she would feel when she would leave. She signed up and came to our Activate Your Power Now workshop. She put in the work. She continued showing up, again, year after year. And I finally asked her, right? Because everyone knows they get that question from me. Don't let me see your face more than twice because we're going to be having a conversation. But I said, so when are you going to share all this beautiful magic with the world? This beautiful human that you are. And she said, oh, I enjoy watching. I enjoy listening. And she threw out a couple little reasons why maybe she shouldn't. And I threw out little reasons why exactly those excuses were why it was so needed, right? The world, there's someone out there just waiting to hear who Valerie is so that they can feel seen and they can feel heard as well. So with no further ado, I want to go ahead and bring up Valerie.
I always say, do I really look like that?
You look beautiful.
Yes, you look
Beautiful.
Even better than that.
Okay, so thank you so much, Izzy. You're very, very sweet to me. Okay, so this is my first time speaking, so I'm pretty nervous. So, please be patient with me.
You're already great, sis.
All right. So, and I have notes since it's my first time, so.
Perfect.
Okay, so the theme for this week is activate your story. Am I talking loud enough? Because I have a tendency to be kind of. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story about myself that I haven't told many people, especially people I might not know. So, again, I'm kind of nervous, but hang in here with me. Okay, so once upon a time, I was a corporate person. I had a job I enjoyed. I was making more money than I'd ever made, and I lived in a gorgeous 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhome. I drove a Lexus, and I'm a bit of a health nut, so I actually had my own infrared sauna. It was a 2-seater, so I thought that was better than the Lexus. But life was good. But then I ran afoul of a Southern human resources person. Going forward, I'll refer to her as the HR critter or the HR swamp creature. She believed people like me are inherently violent and have less value than people who have less melanin in their skin. It took me a minute to figure out what was going on because I'd never had any problems at work, and I can be a bit naive about some of these things. Okay, thank you. Okay. So a coworker I also knew outside of work, I was dating her dad, was angry at me and claimed to feel threatened by me when I wouldn't do something she wanted me to do. So she went to the HR critter, who decided that I was dangerous without making any attempt to get any of the details about the conflicts. So the HR swamp creature made me go to a counselor to deal with my anger issues. I told the counselor that I'm a pacifist who's been vegetarian or vegan since I was 19 years old because of my commitment to nonviolence. I also told her that I had been the victim of identity theft during the corporate move that had brought me to the new office. I was the only one out of dozens of people who had been relocated, and the police had actually determined that the coworker making these accusations against me was most likely involved. So, and the identity theft story is a whole nother thing. So, but anyway, the counselor determined that I wasn't a danger to anyone and didn't need any help. And she also said that she was going to recommend that the one who needed some type of therapeutic intervention was the person that was making the accusations against me. But that didn't matter to the HR creature. She still insisted that I was angry and dangerous and needed some help. So I ended up appealing to the corporate vice president in charge of human resources, and she intervened on my behalf. It turns out that the vice president was a Black woman, so I think the HR critter was probably really pissed off about that. So I thought that was the end of it, but when I made a point of going to the HR critter's office to say no hard feelings, she just glared at me, and I knew I might be in some trouble. But after that, I started asking other Black coworkers about their experience with her, and I heard some pretty disturbing stories. Later, I learned she tried to block the promotion I had just received. And so my supervisor, who was Black, was the one who told me about it, and he suggested that I might want to watch my back going further. So soon after that, I made a minor mistake on a corporate credit card, worth maybe like a couple $100. I had taken a trip that was both business and personal and charged something that was actually personal to the corporate card. But I caught the error, I corrected it right away, and I even contacted accounting to make sure there wasn't anything else that I needed to do. The accounting person I talked to assured me it wasn't a big deal. She even laughed at my diligence and then told me a story about a coworker who had charged a brand new living room furniture suite to her corporate card when she relocated. So, again, like no big deal, right? Okay, but then the no big deal became a big deal and was used as a pretext to give to that affected my next evaluation. And when I refused to sign it, things started to go even more south. So there were other suspicious acts and forms of retaliation. And so, I started having problems sleeping. I was experiencing anxiety and chest pains. And I went to a doctor. I never go to doctors, but I went to a doctor, and fortunately, he approved my short-term disability request. So, long story short, I ended up filing a discrimination complaint against the company. So, one of the things I'll always remember about the first deposition was being really nervous and fearful about what would happen, especially since I didn't have a support system and I was by myself. But the first person I saw was the court stenographer, and she was wearing a pin that had a dove with outstretched wings, a symbol I'm sure many of you would recognize. And so I knew I wasn't alone. I knew I was going to be safe. So I learned a lot about the legal system. The first thing I learned is that really small, or that the really big law firms will often farm out minor cases to the smaller firms in the area. So that means that a small firm can't represent some random person off the street who wants to file a suit against a big company, because it would be considered to be a conflict of interest. And so that's usually enough to make a problem go away, not being able to find an attorney. But I'm fairly persistent. I'm quiet, and people have a tendency to just, kind of dismiss me. But I'm very persistent, and I'm a pretty good writer. And so I used a NOLO handbook, which is a guide for non-lawyers, and I would submit responses on my own. Like I'd look at, like the format that they used, and I would write my response, and to make sure that the deadlines were being met. My case wouldn't be thrown out on a deadline technicality. So they actually did make several requests to the judge to throw out my case, but my documents were on point, as I heard Izzy say. And he accepted my responses about why it should continue. And so it was really a grueling experience, though, and things were getting more and more complicated. And so, probably imagine, I was exhausted, I was paranoid, I was losing weight. I tell people I'm quiet, but I will talk your ears out. That maybe I broke the thing, because I'll talk it to your ears bleed, you know. The other side, of course. What's that?
2 minutes left.
Oh, I'm not done.
Keep going.
Okay, so the other side had the big time expensive lawyers, of course, with the fancy wood paneled offices filled with lots of old books and leather furniture. And they were supposed to mop the floor up with me and make sure I was going to go away. But I'm having to protect that hateful HR creature. And I mean the B word, right? They knew, they were committing crimes, but having to defend her must have cost them a bunch of dough, as my best honey would say. But in the end, it kind of felt like the last part of the first Indiana Jones movie, where they pack up Noah's Ark of the Covenant and just wheel it into a giant warehouse, after he's gone through all these adventures and stuff, to save it from the hands of the evil Nazis. But I think that my attorney must have sensed my feelings. I remember she looked at me and she said, "Don't you ever think for a moment that what you did here doesn't matter." It's just like, now they'll have to be even more careful in the future, because they won't know if they're dealing with another you. So
Exactly.
there was some money involved, but I blew through it fairly quickly, just trying to stay afloat. I was out of a job. I didn't have meaningful family support system, and didn't know if the settlement was just kind of a drop in the bucket for a large company, or enough to warrant some kind of retaliation if the company or that horrible HR swamp creature knew where I was. So I was concerned that a reference check might reveal my whereabouts. And so I worked in call centers that didn't have those kinds of procedures in place. Kind of like my own personal witness protection program.
Right.
So, although I don't consider myself to be a Christian, I've always been a big fan of Jesus. I love the stories and the parables and the lessons and Bible verses, such as Mark 8:36, which says, "For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul?" So I've never really cared a lot about stuff or things anyway. There's a quotation I like from a writer named Tamakeeves that I think begins to describe me. And the saying is, "The trappings of success mean nothing to the blessed."
Exactly.
It says everything, whether it's big or small, is a blessing to me. And I know that regardless of what happens, I'm truly blessed. I've owned homes in the city and the suburbs, and I've lived in nice neighborhoods, and some borderline sketchy ones. And, but I've always felt safe and protected. I went from driving Eugenia, my Lexus, to driving LeMagan, my Hyundai, a few years later. And it was all basically the same to me. They both got me safely from point A to point B, and that's pretty much all I needed. But I will admit that my dream car for decades is the one I drive now. So I'll tell you the story about Glory, my Prius, some other time. But this wasn't the first time I challenged authority and walked into the lion's den alone. And it wasn't the last time either. I truly believe the world would be a much better place if the workers of lawlessness, that's a Bible description, didn't place so little value on their souls or the souls of others. So when it comes to hypocrisy, lies, deceit, and injustice, I'm kind of like the character Sophia in The Color Purple. Before I'm even aware of it, I have balled up my fist and started swinging. I may have lost a lot of people and stuff along the way, but that's okay. I'm always going to feel that not speaking up or not doing what I know is the right thing or feel it's mine to do, even when there are earthly consequences, none of it, not one thing, is anywhere near the value of my soul. So that's my story, and I'm activating it now.
Yes.
Breathing.
Wow. You got me like vibrating at a whole different energy frequency right now. I have chills through my body. And she was hiding that from us, you guys. She was hiding it. No, it's okay. Activation happens in due time, in perfect divine timing, right? So, Valerie, we thank you. We honor you. And there's so much that's activated with your story within us that we will be living now moving forward, right? Be your own advocate in life. Nobody else is going to advocate for you and your well-being more or better than you.
Amen.
So, and everybody take note, right? The quiet ones. Sorry, Valerie. I don't even remember what you were calling the HR lady, but I love it. Swamp creature.
This wasn't more paying attention.
There's a whole lot of powerful being existing usually in those quiet ones. So don't mess with them. Do not mess with them, or mess with them so we can see what true activation looks like and what the power of confidence and the power of courage looks like. Thank you. Our next speaker, you've heard him speak before. Last year, I think he showed up once or twice. Once? Okay. So you got to hear from him once last year, and I know you're wanting more, right? Because I know that ever since I have met him, and he's part of a beautiful duo that collaborates with Activate Your Power Now, and it's called Psy Adventure Club. And I know that ever since I have met them and him individually, you just want that next time, right? That next time to share that space, that next time to have your brain picked at, where you go on this journey internally of all these beautiful things that are existing around us that we just aren't seeing or acknowledging yet, right? For many different reasons. But here he is again to help you get a little deeper into who you are. And with no further ado, it's Rory. Rory Putz. Go, Rory.
I'm just blessed to be here. Your story was incredible. And what came to my mind is Gina had mentioned we were going to come and speak with you guys is what's an activating event? And when is that placed? Is it some event that's somehow in a future time? Because a lot of times people will go to that point of somewhere out there, something's going to shift and things are going to be way different once this happens. But then we look back and say, well, if I can perceive a future activating event and that does something, then maybe I can see one in the past. And so I thought to myself, maybe somewhere in my journey I could identify a particular activating event to share. And I'm going to go with AA because, that's a journey a lot of people go on, and it's one of lots of trials and expectations. However, my story is a little bit different because my mother, when I was a kid, was a heavy drinker. Now, not to over highlight that example, but if you're from Missouri, one of your parents should be an alcoholic. And if not, then it's weird. So, some people are like, it's a unique story. It's actually not a unique story. So, in case someone has not heard that yet, it's important to recognize that. So, I'm that kid, and then my cousin comes over one day and she's like, Rory, your mom needs to go to AA, and she needs one of you boys to go with her. So I thought, well, all right, it's going to be Freddie or it's going to be me. So I decided it will be me. Now I started going to these AA meetings, and there's certain perks as a kid to be there. One for me was donuts from Casey's and the stories. Because how many of you have recognized that not too many people are talking about things going on in their lives? How many of you are recognizing that there's a lot of people talking about things they're upset about out there in the world? Guess where you can't be? Out there in the world. Where can you only be? Where you're at. So when someone starts saying, did you see everything out there, and trying to get you really upset about things out there, what should you probably bring yourself back to? Where you're at. And so as I'm just running around in my thoughts out there, during these AA meetings, I'd be watching these people speak and tell their individual stories, and you just see people being real at a unique level. And so although I'm eating donuts, I'm observing the unfolding events, because a lot of people are looking in their own stories that they're fighting for their own activating event. But what if all we did throughout our day was sought out what is that next activating event occurring around me? Because could we all agree there's probably something out there? Now, can we all acknowledge that maybe we have somehow either been close to or experienced some level of judgment of something outside of yourself in recent times, right? Then sometimes you'll be like, I'm working on getting balanced in my life, and the next thing you know, you somehow slip back into that old repetitive thought process. And sometimes you're like, someday out there I'll stop doing that, and it's like, it's until you finally decide, let me pause for a second and look at things differently. So learning the beautiful unfoldment of AA and how that's not necessarily a stumbling point, that's a permanent ending point for many people. However, that's just a kind of pause, or that's the teacher that they're sitting with in that moment. Because some people be like, they shouldn't be an alcoholic. Well, guess what? They are in that moment. An alcoholic. You can be like, they should be the dad they were before the alcoholism. And that's kind of like, well, you should be the person you were before you read that book. You know what you can't do? Be that person.
Right.
I mean, you can run around and be like, I'm that person as long as you want to, and run around with a label because, it's a cool story. But sometimes it's just another part of the unfoldment. And that's it. But some people get very familiar with it because it comes with certain expectations. Because if you throw that out there, such as, I'm an alcoholic, or, as I said, AA, I bet some different thoughts went through your mind as far as where that story was going to go and how it tied into my unfoldment. Because sometimes we get wrapped up thinking, I'm the only one struggling through this, but who is struggling through this experience called life? And is it always a struggle, or is it always a struggle until you decide it's not a struggle?
Yes. That one right there.
And you can do that any day. Otherwise, it may be like, it's still a struggle. Well, what are you doing consciously to work on that? And it may find it at a meeting that you're at. It could be at a meeting like this. And so for me, sitting in that event, that was that activating event. And so from there, I continue to explore and expand my understanding through the stories of other people's journeys. Because sometimes if you get 100% wrapped up in yours, Have any of you ever heard the expression that we're in a community world, that people are driven by community, that they need other people? Quit isolating yourself to think that in your world all these things are just isolated to you. Open yourself up just to receive, to explore, to expand that awareness, and just keep questioning.
Yes.
And so some of the most beautiful stories came from my uncle Jim, who always sat beside my mother at the AA meetings, because you know AA is one thing when you're struggling alone, and like it's a much cooler experience when it's a family affair. So in case some people like, what kind of attitude do you give towards the entire thing? Because they're growing, they're gonna grow through it. But if you're like, oh my gosh, Uncle Jim, you're an alcoholic, it's like, yes. And if you continue to buy in the story of how he got to that point, he's going to continue to be there. But if you would like to see him in a different light, now perhaps he can be in a different light, and you can project that into other areas as well. Or you can continue buying into that single projection there. So one thing, as my uncle was the leader of that particular group, I grew up through life, and my uncle takes back up drinking after 35 years of being sober, because he had identified himself as a struggling alcoholic. And if you're always fighting to continue to be that, that is an identity that is a struggle to break. But it's not just about that, because some people get hung up and be like, oh, those alcoholics, you know, I'm thinking about them a little bit differently now. Now maybe they have the opportunity to release that title. Well, what titles have you given yourself as far as, I'm different from those people? Well, how long are you going to fight to be different rather than just simply be you? Because if you truly just let yourself be you with wherever you're at, there's nothing you even need to defend, because it's just you in that moment. You know, but that's a practice, because often we get the practice picked right back up of giving ourselves that title.
Yes.
And you can work out whichever muscles you want to. It's each beautiful, but just be conscious of whatever activating events you can extract from even an AA meeting.
Right. Right.
That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Rory. Again, like I said, right, has a lot of information and bridgeful conversations to help you just ask those questions, right? If not asking them about yourself, asking them about the community around you, right? How can I guess what I'm trying to say is, where your thoughts lie, your reality is going to follow, right? So when he said, you know, did our thoughts start coming up of different scenarios or stories that he was about to unfold for us when he said AA? Because I'll admit, the first thing I thought was, wow, I never knew Rory was a recovering addict. That's near and dear to my heart, and I know it's near and dear to people here today, and a lot of you activators that are watching virtually. It's something that's come up, right? But it was the power of the mind is what he was wanting us to focus on today. And you've heard me, and you've heard many other speakers speak on that same thing, you know, the power of the mind. But how do you make that shift to be able to see the world, see the experiences you're encountering as something that's working for you and not against you? Because like he said, it's a process. So before you have all those pieces put together, your mind is wandering everywhere, right? All these different scenarios, judgments, all kinds of thoughts. But how do you harness them back and be in control of them? It's a daily practice. That's being willing to show up every day on purpose. And that's what we call it, Activate Your Power Now, a power path process. It's yours to create. We're not here to tell you how to live your life or who you are. We're here to just help you go on that inner journey, right? So you can discover those things and then share them with us. Thank you so much for bringing those thoughts, bringing our mind back to intentionality, back to gratitude, and back to reality, really, right? The moment. It's the only reality we have. So thank you, Rory. I forgot to look at my page to see who was next before I came up. Okay. So our next speaker, again, no stranger, and that's the theme you're going to find today, right? Valerie was our new speaker because we always like to have someone new up here, just showing what courage looks like. But intentionally, we put this series together with a lot of returning speakers, people who have truly activated their own story and are out there sharing it day to day with a practice with the world. It's not something they just come show up here every month to talk about. So our next speaker is Jen, and you know her as vulnerably sharing her heart, sharing her story, and sharing how it all has worked perfectly to make her the person she is today. And we're grateful for who you are today, Jen. Thank you. Welcome, Jen. I wanted to see you cross your legs.
Did you? Good morning, everyone. So great to be here. I love this group because you get to hear these stories. You get to see these beautiful faces that are up here over and over again, bringing your authenticity, your courage. So it's a joy to get to be a part of this. Growing up, I often described my life when someone says, well, what was your family life like? And I was like, you ever seen, Leave It to Beaver? I was like, yeah, Beaver Cleaver family. That's exactly, how it was. And I just had this perception of what I thought. And I came to learn later on with many, many years of therapy that what that was doing was I was giving a narrative that was protecting the image that I thought of my family. I didn't believe that there was anything. I didn't have any, I didn't grow up in a home where there was violence. My parents had been married for going on 47 years this year. Very peaceful, no addiction, no chaos. And so I thought, I just have this really picture perfect life. And I always knew that I was the odd one out. And my brother told me, it's because you're adopted, we got you at a half off sale at Sears. Mm-hmm. Sure. So, but I knew that there was something that was different about me. And what's really interesting about being in the moment and sharing vulnerably from our story, sharing from the heart, putting the notes down and just speaking, is even looking at this, which you can now see, we have Easter coming up here. This brought back a powerful memory for me. When I was about 5 years old, we went to an Easter egg hunt. It was one of those drops where they have them all over the field and everything. And, they say, okay, ready, set, go. And they fire that and these just swarms of children come out and they pick up everything. And so I was out there with, my brother was ready to go, 5 years older than me out there. And so I was out, I thought, okay, I'm going to pick up as many of these as I can. And so they said, go. Started seeing kids just run like crazy screaming. And I went to go grab for some. And, there was always someone who was faster. There was always someone who was grabbing one off the ground. I was like, well, I wanted that one. And I wanted that. And I started to feel energetically the drop. And I started, crying and thinking, well, like, I wanted that. And so as I'm watching these others around just going out and getting, my brother is just loading it all up. I'm looking at my basket, and it is the first time in my life that I intentionally self-sabotage. And so I chose not to pick up as many of these Easter eggs. Because then when I got back in the car, it was my brother's basket was overflowing, and then there was mine that had a few, and I was crying. And I thought, well, you know what they're going to do? They're going to go, well, here, let me put this into your basket. It's okay, sweetie. That wasn't what happened. Instead, I sat in the middle seat of that little, 1970s orange Nissan pickup truck and just cried. And my dad was silent. And my brother was just beaming with pride over that. And I realized again, like I said, it was the first time I sabotaged myself. Was I capable of going out there and getting those? I was. But I thought that if I was a victim in this story, somehow my little brain knew that at 5 years old, that someone would have sympathy for me. Amazing. I'm sure when you put up the decor in here, that was not what you intended. But yeah, how relevant it is today that this is a part of my story of realizing like the victim mentality that I can have and the ways that I can feel stuck. You know, so my life, when I look at it, wasn't this Beaver Cleaver upbringing. It was beautiful in the sense that I had a beautiful sense of safety and nurturing in my life that a lot of people didn't get. But what were not on my bingo card in life and growing up in life was mental illness, being gay, drug and alcohol addiction, prostitution, and a period of homelessness. Those elements in my story I have used as my victim story or as my limitation, and because I never looked and said, well, when I grow up, I want to be a drug addict and alcoholic. Like, that's not quite what we're aspiring to here. And yet they're parts of my story. And it was really interesting. I was driving the other day for Uber. I started doing Uber driving again, and I remembered why I love it so much. And I ended up getting a notification and accepting a notification from Erica. And there was a note that popped up shortly after from Erica that said, "This ride is for Chris." She said he is wearing a black sweater and a striped shirt underneath that, and has a few things with him. And she said, I'm just trying to help him out. So I already knew this was going to be a story right there. And so I pulled into that quick trip. And I didn't know where we were going. I didn't know where the destination was. And it ended up being the Salvation Army in downtown Kansas City. So I picked up, I said, are you Chris? And he had this tan comforter with him and a small bag. And he was maybe about 5 years older than me, not much older than me. And he just looked at me vacantly and he said, "Are you Uber?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Come on in." And thinking he was going to get in the back seat, he got in the front. And I didn't say anything. Didn't say anything at all. And I did. I said, "Come on in." And he's like, "Should I be in the back?" And I said, "You're fine. Come on in." So he sat in that car, and my mind is immediately activated, thinking, I got a whole list of things I can tell and ways to inspire and all of this stuff. And I'm looking at him, and he is just numbly in the car saying, some of this is my doing, and some of this is not. And he said, I am homeless for the first time in my life. And I couldn't find the words to say. And, my brain is Rolodexing with all these things, all these encouragements, scriptures, do something. And I had nothing. And as he just continued to look ahead, he said, I have to find a cardboard sign. And I have to sit out on a corner and hope that someone will notice me. And I'm getting choked up then as I am now, because I didn't know what to say. And we drove by a cemetery at one point, and he said, the city's just going to cremate me. He said, I have no family. I have no one. And I thought, God, what do you say? All the things, all the experiences, but everything was just quiet. It was like, don't speak. And we spoke very few words. We exchanged very few words with each other. And I asked him, I said, hey, do you want anything to eat? Can I get you something, before I drop you off here? And he said, if you have a couple bucks, that's great. He said, but if you don't worry about it. I'll figure things out. And so we pulled in right down the street from there at a gas station. And he gathered his things, and I said, Chris, I said, I gave him $20. I said, please go get yourself something to eat. And I said, this is a chapter in your life. This is not your story.
Yeah.
Don't give up. And I could see that pain in his face and the concern and the fear and everything that he had. And I just said, don't give up. And he said, may I give you a hug? I said, absolutely. So, leaned over, gave him a hug, and I just kept whispering to him. I said, don't give up. I said, you never know how your life is going to turn out. You don't know. And so he gave me one more hug and got out of the car. And that was Chris. I don't know that I will ever see him again. But what I realized in that moment was this was not an opportunity for me to tell my story. This was an opportunity for me to hear his story. And his story matters. And it reminded me that my story matters, even in all the shit and the chaos and the joy and the beautiful things that I have been through in life. It is all for a reason. And there's such power in being able to share our stories, because in community, we nurture and empower each other. That is the work that we do. So when we have the opportunity to connect to people, we can think, oh, well, we're unique, or Rory talked a little bit about this, like that uniqueness of, oh, maybe this only applies. It's like, no, we're all in this world. We're all a part of this world, and nothing happens by mistake. It is my delusional thinking that says life is going to be sexy. It's going to look this way, and I have this together, I have this and this. And it's amazing how quickly you can be humbled.
Yes.
How quickly I can be humbled by recognizing and being grateful for what I have today, for where I am today. Even after, when I was here a couple months ago, I talked about my relapse after 9 years of sobriety. And how painful that was to stand up here and say, how am I in this place that I got away from for 9 years, and I am right back in it doing the same shit I did 9 years ago? What happened? And I'm so glad it did. And I'm seeing the gratitude, and I'm seeing the value in it, because you know what? I'm taking my own advice. It is a chapter of my life. It is not my story. But I get to tell my story. And so I get to stand here today with 9.5 months now clean and sober, and feel grateful for the power that I have and the ability to be able to connect with people and say that you are not alone. So I love each and every one of you. I'm grateful for each and every one of you for your stories. We all matter, and we are here to let our stories come to life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't ever give up.
Yes.
Thank you, Jen. I just want to reiterate what you just said, the statement you just made. We all matter. We all matter. So don't ever give up. Don't give up on yourself. We go through seasons, right? It's not our story. It's just a season. No different than the seasons that change outside around us year after year. Jen touched on something very, very, very personal. And I was trying to hold it together while I was sitting there taking notes and keeping time.
Take your time, we're here for you.
She opened the vein.
That's all right. Are you okay? That's why we do it.
As she explained, that experience of driving a stranger to a homeless shelter and those feelings that emerged, it brought me back to the car rides that I had to take every time I drive one of my sons to a homeless shelter, because that's where at the time they were choosing to be. They had an addiction problem. And like you said, you're taking that ride, right? There was a time where I was supposed to take my son to the shelter, City Mission. I just couldn't do it. But I knew I had to. I had to follow through. It was the life he was choosing. And I couldn't do it so much that I said, you know what? I jumped on the highway and he said, where are we going? I said, I'm taking you to the Manhattan shelter. Because as a mom, I just couldn't release him to this big shelter in a big city. I drove him where I knew maybe he would be safer. Maybe he would not have such a horrible experience. And the whole ride down there, I didn't know what to say. Any of my words, I didn't feel like it would be comforting because in his mind, I was the one putting him in that situation. But I knew deep down, right? And I knew from my trusted support system, my husband David, that we had to follow through. I knew that God had something greater for him that I was getting in the way from. Mm-hmm. So God had to do drastic things to reap drastic results. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand it then. But now, years later, that son, Reuben, he's now going to be celebrating 3 years clean.
Yeah.
Is life easy for him? Absolutely not. We celebrate and we give praise and thanks to the addiction no longer being present. Yes. But there's a whole recovery process after that. And especially when you choose not to seek any type of outside help. Mm-hmm. And what that looks like right now for him is, I was calling it depression at first, and he kept getting mad at me. I'm not depressed. Mm-hmm. And it was brought to my attention that his signs were mimicking PTSD. Mm-hmm. And as soon as that was brought to my attention, I could see all of the things that I was capable of seeing, of what would have played a part in this PTSD that he was experiencing before the drugs. It was happening before the drugs. So, again, your story is not your end-all, be-all. What you've experienced so far, it's just gaining that awareness so that now you can have the knowledge that you are holding the pen. You are writing it. What it's going to be moving forward, you play a big role in that, right? Just like Rory said, our thoughts, like we've talked about lots of times. Now getting your thoughts in order, but now turning those thoughts into actions. You have to be your advocate. You have to take action. So Jen, thank you for opening that piece of me that needed to be opened, evaluated, reflected on, and I already know this is about to take me on a whole journey. So thank you for being vulnerable and for sharing your truth. And we're sending love, peace to Stephen? Chris, wherever you are, this was just the beginning of your new life. Thank you for showing up. Our next speaker, again, I said we got one half of her earlier. They're a duo. They do great things by helping to do their part to heal the world together through Psi Adventure Club. Again, AYPN, we collaborate with them, and we go on some really deep trainings with them. Reveals a lot of things that just helps catapult your healing to the next level, and I'm very grateful for her. But she's no stranger to Activate Your Power Now. She's shared a piece of her heart before a couple times, and ever since we met, there's always been this synchronicity between us that I think we both have we value a lot. We don't have to ever say a lot to communicate with each other. It's like we're there. And I can't wait to hear what she has to share with you. Please welcome Gina.
So it's kind of funny. Earlier on in being a mom, I had a hard time with people looking at me as someone who they consider to be maternal. I don't know why, if it just added like an age to it that like I couldn't digest it. And people who know me and my children well, they know that they're not allowed to call me mom. They can only call me mommy. And the funny thing is I didn't actually make that rule until my oldest daughter just kept moving along and she was going out with her friends, or my oldest son, and they were like, bye mommy, love you. And I'm like, dang, like you guys have no shame in calling me mommy, while some of their friends started doing this funny thing of calling their friends as moms by their first names. You know, like I was a youth leader and I'd see someone walk away and they'd be like, bye Becky. And I'm like, what the hell did you just say to your mom? Like, no, you go call her mom, you know? And so it's really interesting. But here in the recent, you know, I've really recognized that it's part of who I am, that maternal gift. And when I've gotten the opportunities to hold space and to hold containers, I started calling it my womb. You know, that when all of my tribe, my soul family comes in to be with me, whether it's in a retreat space, whether it's on Sunday morning, you know, and I haven't actually shared this. I'm a minister in Maryville, and so I haven't actually shared this with like my congregation collectively. But I'm sure they know it's like, yes, many of them may be older than me, but it's like, that's my babies. That like that church is my baby, and PAC is my baby, and my babies are my babies. And that's where that came from. Just in coming up here, I was like, you know, as I'm about to talk to you about where Activate Your Story took me, I just had to share with you all that kind of maternal feeling again. We're like, you know, I think about AYPN as being a gift from James and Isabel, and it's like as she's up there talking, and it's like there's mama holding this womb in place, and it's beautiful, and there's a lot of things being created and birthed in here and released in here. And so Activate Your Story. I have felt compelled, I have felt nudged, I have felt spirit beckon to lock arms with Activate Your Power now, ever since I first heard about it, even before I met Isabel, and then once I met her, it really sealed the deal. But things, you know, when you really want something, you know you want it. You go for it, you know, especially if it's lining up, if it's congruent with who you are. And things just kept getting in the way. I said, well, this must not really be what you want to be doing. And as things were, last year was building up to this season, and we were dabbling. I don't like that word because that to me means you're not intentional, you're not focused, you know. So we were dabbling. We showed up one time because, hey, we're so excited to become a part of this community, but we're going to show up late like we did today. But, you know, still, we're really intentional, y'all. That's why we came an hour late, you know. And so, like, there's that side. And then the next time we came back again, by then, I had continued to make a lot of connections with some of you all and feel that tribal bond, feel when this tribe meets that tribe. And so it's strengthened that. And so I said, you know, when I come to these things, I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to come in hungry, looking for you beautiful teachers to feed me. And I'm going to come in with a meal, being ready to serve you all as well. So I was thinking all week, okay, where does this take me? Activate your story, activate your story. And, you know, I love the way Spirit works. I was in the shower. And it was just yesterday, and I was like, all right, tomorrow, you know, we're going to go do this. I got to get on the road down here. And I'm like, activate your story. Okay, what does story make me think of? Well, story makes me think of, like, this has been communication since the beginning of time. So there was nonverbal stories, and then in our feeble attempts to bring words, because words are so much beyond, it's the logos, but to bring words into something we could use, we started telling stories. You know, we weren't even writing them down yet. And unfortunately, you know, the story I tell Isabel that you go off and you tell Evan and then Evan tells someone else isn't necessarily going to be the story. But one of the most powerful story writers is your mind. Your mind is such a great storyteller. And I thought, gosh, as I was listening to all y'all, I was like, yeah, we got the same book collection. I know it. And we're all playing the same games as to how many times we read those books. So here's me, you know, and I've used a backpack many times in a church illustration. And my son looks at me and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that one, thank you. I have a new one in mind. And I was like, you know, when I think of stories the most, I think of books. You know, how many storybooks, you know, do we have? And I thought about, isn't it interesting? When you are born into this world, you all get a copy of this book. Now, come on, everyone. If you do not have a childlike imagination, shame on you. You better go there right now. Let's go on this journey, okay? And the first book, it's my favorite. Who you are, what you should believe, and who you're gonna be. I love that one. Didn't y'all get that one? Who you get it from? Your parents, your neighbor, your school teacher, that older kid that was so cool. Yes, I love reading this. And if you read it enough times, you might just be everything in this book, but who you are. You know? I'm a minister, y'all. We got our boundaries, okay? We got our boundaries. You know? But then there's my favorite. Everything you did right and everything you did wrong. Now, how many of y'all, after a really good week, you still go and read the second half right before you go to bed? Everything I did wrong. What? I got a promotion? What? I connected with an old friend? Yeah, but I should have done better when I gave that speech. But there's all those people I still don't get along with. How many times before you go to bed, we just read that section? Mistake, 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 mistake. Or even better, maybe you're past that in your life. Congratulations, but you read that first section so much. Ooh, look at everything I'm doing right. Dang. Man, I'm really growing faster than you, James. I mean, did you read chapter 3? Gina is doing a lot more than James is. I mean, hey, I'll post about it on Facebook and make it sound mystical, and then we'll all be in it together. All right? And then, oh my gosh, this one, it looks small, but it's actually because it's only volume 2. Trauma, regret, addiction, and chaos. These are steamy. Woo! I love reading these. They tell me exactly who I am, right? Yeah. And so the thing is, I got a bag full. And I like the way y'all use different verbiage to say it, but I can read these books. And they have exciting chapters, scary chapters, mysterious chapters, thrilling chapters you don't want to read around other people. And then the chapters you want everyone to read. But at the end of the day, they're just stories on my shelf. Sometimes I keep them in my backpack. Really, I like to put them there. And maybe every now and then, if I want to remind myself who I'm not, what doesn't define me, if I just want a good teacher, a good lesson, then I'll go pick one up. But it's exactly that. It was a teacher. It was a lesson. Whether it's the greatest story ever or what people say is the worst story ever, it's a lesson. It's a teacher. It's a tool. It's a tool that you can use to help other people release that story. Because the thing is, if you got this book, this book, what's it called? Oh, the book of you. Oh, the book of you. And y'all, the pages are blank. That must be because I am writing my story in every moment of my life. Yes. With every breath, with every step. My son said, you're going to start singing every move you make. I'm like, shut you. He's like, that's something you would do? And I was like, I know it is. Every breath. Okay, all right. But that's the thing. Is like, you know what? Your story, activate your story and add the now. That's right, because that's the only time you can activate it. Yeah. Who am I right now? Am I a master teacher? Am I a mother? Am I a preacher? I'm Gina. And I'm activating the story of Gina right here, right now. And look, oh my gosh, Amy, your story's going on right here, right now, too. It is powerful. And if you want to pretend it's not, I got a book you can read. Hold on. This one? Oh, yeah, exactly. So I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to be a chapter. And I hope I land in that one that's about you. But, every now and then I might land that one. That annoying girl from Maryville. Y'all better stop reading that book. I banned that book a long time ago. But seriously, thank you for letting me be a part of y'all's story. I welcome y'all to be a part of mine. And I do want to do this with a lot of pride. I am a minister in Maryville, Missouri at a place called First Christian Church. It's a Disciples of Christ denomination, okay? Yes, I am an ordained reverend in the Disciples of Christ Church. Anyone who knows me knows that is a title that comes with a beautiful degree, with a beautiful ordination, and it means the world to me. But I am Gina. Amen. I am filled with the Spirit. I am ordained. I am blessed, highly favored,
from the source. And I'm here to bring the message. And yes, my heart rests with Jesus. And at the same time, I love Buddha as a teacher. I love Krishna as a teacher. I love Sufi teaching. I love Islam teaching. I love it all. And I just don't believe I can truly understand Christ's teaching if I don't see everybody where they are with their perfect teacher. So that's me making my non-shameless plug to say, y'all ever want to check me out? First Christian Church Maryville, 10:30 on Sundays. And I'm not speaking to, actually, I'm speaking to love. Because I want to say, I am speaking to Christians because I believe we are all Christians because we are all collectively one. But if that rubs anyone wrong, fine, clean it off. I'm speaking to love. And we are all love. So yes, thank you for allowing me to reactivate my story. Oh, here we go again. Because in every moment, it's now.
Exactly. Thank you, Gina. So what book in there do you have about Izzy? The cool one from Kansas. So, as usual, she brings it to the table. She's very passionate about what she believes, what she lives, how she shows up. And what I love about it is that she leaves all those stories of all those books right on the bookshelf where they belong, right? And to me, that spoke to what Evan spoke to earlier also was, right? I'm pretty sure it was Evan, the mask. Yes. And, it's the awareness that is key. Because we walk around with masks. Masks are a part of life. It's a part of how we get through life, figuring out who we are in different circumstances, at different levels, at different jobs. The same with the books on the shelf, right? We don't realize that we have all these versions of us sitting on the bookshelf. We don't know that we have options. And then furthermore, we don't know that there's that blank book waiting for us to write the next part of the story. But it's awareness that is key in both of those. Because until you can say, I have a mask on. I have this trilogy of books on my bookshelf, but that's not me, that's not me, that's not me, and that's not me. Right now, let me open the blank one and let me tell you who I am right now today. Right? It's a matter of awareness, acknowledgement, and then action. So thank you, Gina, for bringing that right back together, helping to tie up some other things with that illustration. And it was funny. I mean, sometimes we find ourselves holding our breath through Activate Your Power Now. Maybe our heartbeat gets a little fast, because we are talking about real life stuff. So it's so refreshing when we get to just laugh through a session, right? And be lighthearted with a deep, deep, deep message. So thank you again. We have one more speaker to complete the lineup today. And she, bet you can guess who it is. Yes. Can anybody guess? We saved the best for last always. And what was beautiful about this, the way this always gets set up with Activate Your Power Now, is that she used her voice and said, put me last, that's where I belong. And because she did that, like I said, we now get to have the best for last every single time, over and over, because she just has this way of listening, holding space, tying it all in together, and then giving it back to us in a way that just makes us feel more maybe complete and prepared in this moment to walk outside these doors and face the world over again. So please welcome Evie.
Well, no pressure, right?
Not at all. Not at all.
Oh Lord. Okay, here we go. Today was amazing, and I am so proud of each and every one of you. The transparency I got to see up here today, and the openness, and then watching you as you're telling your stories, forgiving yourself for your stories. I don't know if anybody else picked up on that, but you can see it in real time. The forgiveness that we gave each other, the forgiveness that you were giving yourself during that time. So as I prepared for this speech, I was riddled and trying to figure out what to say and what to do, because to activate my story, I have to be willing to walk through the dark. And so to get it, you have to go back to it. And as all of the speakers up here today said, we have to be present, we have to be right here, but we have to go back. Sometimes you gotta look back to even know how far you've come. And so the scripture that came to me was Exodus 14, so I had to go back to the beginning. Exodus 14 says that you have to be silent. You have to be silent. Why do you think that matters? Because sometimes everybody's expecting this loud thing, or like we all discussed today, this big moment, as this activation, as if there's this, you just get this shock and it's like, oh, I'm activated. We're not robots, guys. You got to be silent. How would you know if you weren't quiet enough to hear it? You have to silence your mind and your spirit. Otherwise, you're just listening to random predictions that you've come up with the notice of other people's opinion of yourself. I'm only going to show up as if they said I was supposed to, because as long as I'm exactly who they need me to be, I get to continue to hide me from me, and then I get to lie about me, and then they'll believe whatever I say about me, but I never have to be me because that person is hurting. Well, she's scared and she's alone and she's afraid and she's been through things, and I don't want to be her. You see, she's hurting. So you pretend that you're okay. You show up in the rooms and you puff yourself out and you're strong and you believe, because as long as you're pretending, you belong. But then do you belong if you were pretending all along?
Right?
Just to wonder, if you were trying to belong in the rooms that only you've arrived in pretending, then have you ever been there? Was that you? Are the memories that you're remembering, was it this life or the one that you keep holding on to? Was that pain yours? We've heard some things up here today about being pirates and prostitutes and pain and pretending and bullied and attacked. Was that you? Or was that the last version of you that you won't let go to be you? Are you still pretending? Do you believe in you enough to stop pretending? Is the newest version of you worth enough to stop pretending? Is it okay to believe that you're the miracle? Is it all right to know that you're the one that survived? Is it okay to acknowledge all the deaths of the one you pretended to be so that you could rise up from the grave that you built for you? Are you okay with coming forward? Is the light, even though it's bright, is it worth checking out? Have you been sitting in that tunnel long enough? It's dark in there. Everybody in there hates you. Everybody in that tunnel is abusive. Everybody in that tunnel is narcissistic. Everybody in that tunnel is attacking you. Everybody in that tunnel is addicted to you. Everybody in that tunnel hates you. Everybody in that tunnel abuses you. Why do we stay in the tunnel? All our lives we heard there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Why won't we go get the light? Do you know that you'll only know if the light is at the end of the tunnel if you knew what light was?
Right.
But you battle darkness and you like it there. It's comfortable, it's predictable. It hurts, pain is normal. If I'm in pain, I'm alive. So I'll tunnel. I'll tunnel and I'll pretend. I'll tunnel and I'll mask up. I'll tunnel and I'll obey. In the tunnel, I don't have to be me. I don't have to turn on the light, because that's not who they wanted to see. They like the angry me, the rageful me. See, the rage in me, not to know me now, but to know me then. I'm a vicious person. I know what I'll do to you. I know what I've come from. I know streets that I can't even say, because I don't know the statute of limitation on those crimes. I know who I was. I know what the tunnel is like. It's predictable. It's the same. I used to say things when I would go through storms and get frustrated. I say, you know, I know what to do. I know how to make money. I know how to handle this. And then I look at her and I say, oh man, don't come out yet. Don't come out yet. I'm going to try again. Then I get the one that could easily get my bills paid. I know what to do. And I look at her and say, just hold on. I'm going to try this again. See, I know how to activate them. I know how to call them back out. I know how to find them. They're waiting. They battle ready. They don't mind. But I chose to be me, present in time, right here, with you. I walk out of here sometimes and everybody kind of wonders why. Well, I get hot. Because I'm on pause. Woo, okay, I know it's but I walk out sometimes not just because of the heat. I'm an empath and I feel you all. Sometimes it's heavier than I can take. So I have to disconnect from time to time. Even though I love to filter you all because I get to know places that you won't let anybody else see. But I saw you and you seem pretty cool to me. I wish you'd let them come forward. I wish you'd let them see. That person that you're hiding from, the person that you're wondering if the next version is going to be good enough, they are so excited for you. They want to meet you too. But you got to let them see. I get to see all of you and feel all of you and hear all of you. And some of you, there's a little girl or a little boy and they sound like they're playing. There's a teenage you and I kind of feel the rebellions in here. And there's this adult you. And you're scarier than the young one. The adult you is more afraid. Not sure why. You sounded pretty fearless before. You knew who you were then. It was long before you ran away from yourself. But you take you with you everywhere you go, like Roy and Gina said. To be present, you got to be right there, and to remember where you were, you have to go back there. But you were already up here. You don't have to. Be proof. Be proof to you. Look in the mirror when you get home, and those of you that are at home, find your mirror. Look at you. Look at proof. Right there. Everything you were afraid of, look in the mirror. Look at proof. Everything that is ever sent to destroy you, look in the mirror. Look at proof. You have your proof. And they're just waiting on you to believe it. They're waiting on you to know it. What happens if you thought about it when deliverance is... What happens when deliverance feels like destruction? What happens when you're destroyed?
Want to give up? What a message.
You either want to give up, you want to quit, or you get to rebuild. You get to emerge. You get to be birthed into something new. What happens when deliverance feels like destruction, but destruction of the last you is only where you're going to get the new you? So what are we doing? Set ablaze, like I said last time. Get on fire. Let your wings come through. Be birthed. Allow it. Stop trying to stop you. Those little yous are talking loudly and they want you to listen this time. They don't want to keep being run away. They want you to truly take the time and look at the proof. Before I get off the stage, I wanted to play this song for you all, and I would like everybody to just close your eyes, and I want whatever this song means to you for it to mean what it means. I know what it means to me. And hopefully you all at home can hear it. If not, it's called Proof by Seth Addison. If you've never seen the dead rise from the grave, you have an hour.
out. I gotta let it out and let praise break through. If you've never seen anxiety bow at Jesus' name, you have it now. If you've never seen addiction conquered by grace, you have it now. Oh, if you've never seen a generational curse break, you have now. Oh, if you never looked a miracle in the face, you have it now. 'Cause if you knew my past, if you knew where I've been, if you knew what he brought me through, you would lift your hands, you'd sing and dance, you wouldn't miss this chance, no, you'd thank him too. 'Cause my life's the proof of what he can do, 'cause I'm still breathing now. I can't help but shout, I gotta let it out, and let praise break through. Oh, and I've seen too much, yeah. If you never do one more thing for me, you've done more than enough. You're all I need. You have my love. Oh Lord, if you never do one more thing for me, you've done more than enough. Oh, I've seen too much. I've no choice but trust. I've seen too much. Oh, I've seen too much.
So I'm going to ask all of you to go home and be your own proof. Thank you.
Thank you, Evie, for that wonderful, beautiful share, for reminding us that we all have our dark tunnel moments, right, where we just can't see what could possibly be ahead of us. It's so dark, it's so cold, it feels so lonely. But to be reminded that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel has always been refreshing to me, right? And like Amy, always finding the silver lining. But I have to say that it wasn't until after my experience with PAC and Gina and Rory that I got to gain a better, bigger understanding that I am the light in the dark tunnel. And so are you. Right? Sometimes when we are the light, you can't see the light shining because it's reflecting onto other people. Right? So again, guys, we can't always be our own superhero in our life. God sends other people to do that, help us along with that sometimes, even though you're your number one advocate. But know that you can always serve as somebody else's hero just by being you. So keep being that light, stay on your activation journey, and go out there and be great. Thank you.